From the age of 12, we were partying to soul music, as in, you know, funky street, northern soul, and that's where the origins come from. You know, northern soul comes from the north, Manchester, and that's what started the whole soul revolution. All the movements, rare groove, jazz funk, all that stuff, all comes from then. I'm still partying today because the rare groove scene is an extension of that, you know, and I've been on every party scene from the beginning and seen it evolve, and it's all about the music. It's all about the music, it's all about the beats, it's all about the vibe.
So, first of all, could you introduce yourself?
My name is Curtis Benjamin.
Curtis, what you have something to say. I've just met you downstairs at Poetic Funk, and you started talking to me about your origins and where you come from. Yeah,
I come from Manchester, and I grew up in Moss Side, Rusholme and West Gorton. And from the age of 12, we were partying to soul music, as in, you know, funky street, northern soul, and that's where the origins come from. You know, those early days of what I would say the early 70s, northern soul, Wigan Pier, which I went to actually, and all those places, Birdcage in Manchester, in a place called Rochdale. You know, they were the early days of soul music, and that's where the origins come from. You know, northern soul comes from the north, Manchester, and that's what started the whole soul revolution, I would say, in England, to what we've got now. All the movements, rare groove, jazz funk, all that stuff, all comes from then. It started in Manchester, back in the day.
And okay, so this is your claim that
well, it's not my claim. If you check it in I don't know what you want to check it in, you know, in the files of music or whatever, you'll find, you know, Manchester was bopping to northern soul back in the early 70s.
But don't you think it's a bit like saying, you know, rock and roll that came from...
Well, rock and roll is black music. Rock and roll is soul music.
Absolutely, but you know, that was being played in the London clubs in the 50s,
yeah, and
60s,
yeah.
And I'm documenting the untold story of Raregroove, and
yeah.
You know, we're finding the stories from back in the day and
yeah.
documenting how the scene came about.
Yeah.
I find it a bit of a far cry to claim that, you know, our scene, the rare groove scene, originated from the northern soul scene. I think it was an independent scene that was happening in London in
well, listen, all music comes from somewhere, right? The mere fact that northern soul came here in the early 70s, it was a northern movement. We know that for a fact, that it was a northern movement, right? And then that music has generated and slowly changed into whatever we had. I mean, London had its own scene. We had our own scene as far as jazz funk, rare groove, and it's all come from that source, because that was the first, as far as I know, that was the first like funky vibe. Northern soul was the funkiest movement going, where kids went out dance all night, and that's what, you know, that's what rare groove is. That's what jazz funk is, even today. You know,
absolutely. I mean, we're basically talking about, you know, people coming together to dance.
Yeah.
My point is that rare groove was music that was an antidote to what was going on in the soul clubs at the time, in the suburban soul clubs, which was really terrible. I mean, for me, it was sort of terrible commercial, 4 to the floor, big beefy beats, absolutely no soul whatsoever. It was sold by the majors as soul, and it was in the suburban clubs. And I feel that the funkiest style that was being played in London, which was, you know, the sort of the James Brown, the Afro funk, those tracks, they don't have anything to do with Northern Soul, because Northern Soul was just very, very fast, up tempo, 4 to the floor, aerobic dance music, whereas funk brought that syncopated cross rhythms. We were looking for beats that were a little bit quirky, that were a bit slower, that gave expression on the dance floor. It wasn't an aerobic style of dancing. It was a very expressive style of dancing, a very poetic style of dancing.
Yeah, but if you think of Northern Soul, yeah, you say that, but Northern Soul was the B side of tracks, right? So then now we've got the A side of tracks. Now we've got a continuation or an upgrade of music, but it still has the same beats. It still has, you know, it's soul music, but on a different level. And the movement just shifted, you know, it just shifted. Everything is underground, everything moves, you know, and jazz funk, soul, it just shifted. And it was just another movement. It was just, you know, and then it became popular. It became more popular because it wasn't as underground as Northern Soul was, because it was a northern thing. People from the south used to come up to the north to party, and you know, when we started to do the jazz funk scenes, we had the all-dayers, and it still generated, it moved, it was people coming together from all over the country. It was more open. As time's gone on, things have just become more open, and that's why I see the music scene. You know?
I mean, it's interesting that you say Northern Soul was about B-sides, because I had a conversation with Ian Dewhurst, who used to DJ under the name of Frank. He was one of the original Northern Soul DJs, and Ian used to come to my house, and I used to play him music that I was discovering. I would call it again on the rare groove scene, and these were B-sides to B-sides to Northern Soul records. Yeah. So I don't think it's absolutely correct to say Northern Soul was always the B-side.
It was mostly B-sides.
Ah, well.
It was mostly B-sides. It was mostly the B-sides that weren't being played in America, and they got played here, and they became popular, and hence that helped the soul scene in America, which then artists were coming over from America to be popular here. As we know, you know, people like Diana Ross and other artists became very popular here before they became popular in America, you know. So yeah, I mean, England is I don't know why this little island has the music, has the style, has the, you know, the vibe for partying and everything, but we do have it, and that's it, and it starts from all those times, you know.
For those who are watching, would you mind explaining the difference between Northern Soul and rare groove?
Well, Northern Soul and rare groove, the difference, to be honest, I mean, the difference has to be the dance. I mean, obviously there's a musical difference in the beat slightly, but they're both upbeat, they're both dance moves and everything. But Northern Soul, like I said, was always the B-sides, well, mostly the B-sides of soul music, which was quite up-tempo, and the whole scene was generated by energy, like pure energy, dancing, all-night scenes. The Raregroove scene has been more of a party scene, and you know, same energy for dancing and stuff, but yeah, the Northern Soul scene, that is the beginning of what we would say is the high energy of dancing. So yeah, we've all it's come from that. It's a generation from that.
I'd absolutely agree, and I think that Northern Soul is up-tempo, it's much faster.
It was an underground scene, it was an underground, and that's what's generated that kind of vibe, you know?
Yeah. Well, maybe we can agree on one thing, that these were both underground scenes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And could you introduce yourself again and tell the listeners who you are, what you do, where they can find you?
Yeah, my name is Curtis Benjamin. I'm a photographer. I'm from Manchester, so I'm from the Manchester scene. You can find me on my website, www.curtisbenjamin.com. That's my website. Yeah, and I'm still partying today because the Raregroove scene is an extension of that, you know, and I've been on every party scene from the beginning and seen it evolve. And it's all about the music. It's all about the music. It's all about the beats. It's all about the vibe, you know, and that's it.
One final thing. So this is the untold story of Raregroove, and what we like to finish on is a nugget, something that's never been told before, something that can be revealed in this this document of underground dance music.
Okay, all right. Well, here's a good one. Back in when the jazz funk days were going on, and we had the all-dayers, for instance, there was a point where we couldn't dance on a Sunday. We go to an all-dayer up north, and they would go, "It's a Sunday, we can't dance." So we'd go to an all-dayer, we'd pay for the all-dayer, but we couldn't dance between certain hours. And I forget what the hours were, but we had to like go to an all-dayer and literally sit there, have drinks, but couldn't dance for like 2 hours before the time we were allowed to dance, you know, because it was a Christian day. And that always left the mark on me, as that, like, why, you know, why would that happen? But there you go. But we got through that, and we after the time elapsed, we were just dancing extra hard. You know, so that out of all my experience, that's like one of the funniest things, you know. And that was jazz funk, the jazz funk 80s vibe, you know. And I think it was Blackpool all dayer, you know.
Just if you wouldn't mind, could you give a shout to, you were up north, I'd love you to give a shout to some of those Northern Soul DJs who you...
You know what, I can't remember them. Terrible, terrible. But listen, I'll give a shout out to the Hacienda, because I was there at the beginning when the first house record was played. I think it was Sasha or someone like that, you know. New Order, Bernard is an old friend of mine, and you know, I used to get into the Hacienda through him and stuff. Happy Monday, Stone Roses, all those people, I know them all. We all had top fun in the Smokers Corner in the Hacienda. And yeah, Manchester, listen, that was... The North has a lot to play, has a lot to say in all this soul vibrance, this soul music, you know. It's a big part, it's a big part of everything, totally. So big up to them. You know.
Thank you very much for taking time to speak to the Untold Story.
Thank you, man. Let's go.